Bienvenidos and welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol, the place we discuss all things USMNT y la selección mexicana. My name is Adrian. Joining me once again, my co-host Tocayo, Adrian. Adrian, what's Gucci, bro?
Hey, what's up, man? Out here finally in the what I call my newest studio. As some of you may recall, my background was always a mess for the last year and some months, or shorter than a year. But I was able to move to a different room in my house, and now I have. It looks a little better for sure now, but I can actually rest assured that my background is not a mess.
No, and you got all your Pikachu's and your Pokemon stuff finally unpacked.
Mhm.
But I'm speaking of rooms. Yeah, I'm finally back in my room as well, and I can finally speak loud and clear. I was having to speak like this the whole time because I was in the hotel and was calling you to record, like probably 11 p.m. your time, but like 5:30, 6 a.m. my time. So
Yeah.
it was a pain to record. When you have walls of the hotel, people sleeping next to you, and I'm not going to be screaming, "Welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol." So good to be back and recording now. And we got a good one today. We're going to be doing the preview for Mexico Uruguay. That's today, Wednesday. Later tonight will be the match. So this is our preview upcoming that important match. One that's going to be in preparation for the Copa América. One that will give Mexico much needed measuring stick to measure themselves against South American opposition. We obviously know that Mexico will be playing Ecuador, Jamaica, and Venezuela. So two, South American teams. Uruguay is probably the better of those. Ecuador, Venezuela, Uruguay. So this will be a good, way to measure themselves up against South American opposition. Better than Bolivia, right? That 1-0 match that we saw, and
Yeah.
that consisted of, if you watched the previous episode, mainly U23 teams for our squad for Mexico. So at the end, man, yeah, let's get right into it. This is going to be an interesting match for sure. One that puts two coaches in very different spots of their career against each other. Marcelobielsa, obviously, for Uruguay, and Jimmylozano for Mexico. Interestingly enough, Uruguay's last match against Costa Rica, they drew 0-0. Marcelobielsa was not coaching. I do not recall what he was off to doing, but he was not involved in that match. But to be fair to them, many of their star players weren't involved in that match either, just like Mexico. So, Adrian, man, yeah, let's dive into it. What can you tell us about some history between Mexico and Uruguay before this match in Denver?
Yeah, man. So as we like to do on these preview episodes, we normally take a little dive on the last five matches between both teams. In this case, Mexico against Uruguay. The latest match that we actually took a quick view was Mexico versus Uruguay in the FIFA World Cup 2010 in South Africa, when Mexico lost 1-0 with some poor decisions from El Vasco Aguirre. And then the next one happened in 2011 in Copa America. Mexico lost 1-0 again in that competition. 2016 Copa America again, but that's when Mexico actually defeated Uruguay on what it seemed to be one of the best matches of Mexico with Juan Carlos Osorio. I don't remember that Copa America, but that Mexican team was actually quite competitive, and they just completely destroyed Uruguay. Great display from my man Juan Carlos Osorio. And then the last two matches, one happening in 2018, Mexico lost 4-1 in an international friendly that was under El Tata Martino, if I'm not mistaken, or yeah, I want to say Tata Martino, or even before, slightly before
Yeah, I think it was
Tata
before
Martino.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe with what's his name?
2018. What's it? Sorry, no, still
No, it wasn't. No, Osorio was already gone by then. Who was after Osorio? I think it was El Tuca. Maybe Tuca coached like a
during the
but
interim.
yeah, I want to say it was El Tuca because Osorio was pretty much out after the 2018 World Cup. And the last one was another international friendly. Now this time with Tata Mezquino during 2022, shortly before, actually a couple of months before the World Cup, and that's when you start seeing the decline of Mexico as to this point where we are today, right? So out of the last five matches, four lost for Mexico, one win. Very very tough odds for me, historically speaking, for Mexico.
Yeah, and this has been in Uruguay that since probably 2008, 2009 has been on a rise, right? I mean, we saw that 2010 Uruguay that did fantastic in South Africa, and what people thought was their golden age or golden generation that was going to ultimately come to an end with Diego Forlan, Edson Cavani, Luissuarez, and many others, right? What was the center back, the blonde center back that played for PSG?
Godin
Godin, yeah,
or
all of
no Godin. Man, Lugano.
Lugano, yeah.
Yes,
Godin was the
yeah.
bald one.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then they had Muslera and all those guys. What many thought, when that generation concluded, they were going to dip, as we often see these South American teams, Paraguay, Uruguay, Chile have their ups and downs, right? We mainly see Brazil and Argentina be the consistent ones. But no, man, I mean, Uruguay has still, they still have luissuarez. Obviously, Edson Cavani has retired from international play. But, if you look at their squad, they still have, people such as Nunez for Liverpool, Betancourt,
Valverde.
Ugarte. Yeah, they just have a squad that of Araujo for Barcelona, players that play all on competitive, teams in Europe that are feature constantly for those teams and are integral members of those teams. So Uruguay, they may have lost those stars, but they replaced them with new and maybe debatable better players. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult match for Mexico, I think, but it is a match, like we said in the beginning of this video, that can give Jimmy Lozano a point of reference as to where he stands heading into Copa America, which is less than 3 weeks away, in a group that many people will think Mexico can do well to get out of. We will be doing our preview of Mexico and their group in a later video before the tournament, so stick here PPG for that one. So we don't want to go too into depth in that group talk here, but let's keep it to Uruguay and Mexico. So in previous matches, how do these two teams come into form into this match? Mexico has come the last 6 matches. Their most recent one was a win. Before that was a loss. Before that was a win. Before that was a loss. Before that was a win. Before that was a loss. And Uruguay, their form is a little different. They have draw as their most recent 3 matches, and then before that was 3 wins in a row. Interesting fact: Uruguay has scored in all matches since their 2-0 loss to Portugal at the Qatar 2022 World Cup. So they haven't stopped scoring since then. Well, I guess non-friendlies, right? Because they obviously just tied against Costa Rica. But yeah, I mean, Uruguay coming into this match, decent form. That Costa Rica match did not have many of their starters. So I guess as we continue discussing this, before we go into Mexico's potential lineup, let me talk about Uruguay's potential lineup here. Many pundits are saying that Uruguay will be bringing back most of their A squad. There's a couple players, a couple of the older players like luissuarez that were permitted to miss out from this match, but they, what many are predicting are Rochet in the goal, Nandes, Cáceres, Jiménez, Olivera, midfield Betancourt, Ugarte, Araujo, Pelistri, and then Nunez and Rodriguez up front. Pelistri, sorry. So dangerous lineup for Uruguay, a lineup that of players that are world renowned, world known. How would Jimmy stack up against this? What do you got for Mexico's potential lineup, bro?
All right, man. So I think it's safe to say that Jimmy's going to play with a 4-3-3 lineup. I think it's going to be pretty much a matchup against the formation that Uruguay might present. Of course, on the goalkeep, I think it's time for us to start seeing Luis Malagón as the go-to and the starter. I don't think there's any questions about that. The line of 4 in the back, we're gonna see the regular one with one small change, just because Jesus Gallardo wasn't called up this time around. So we have Jorge Sanchez on the right back, Cesar Montes and Johan Vasquez as center backs. That's the most probable, but there's a couple of things that I want to discuss in a couple of minutes. And then lastly, left back Gerardo Arteaga. Your 3 midfielders will be edsonalvarez, Orbelin Pineda, and Luis Chavez. And then lastly, your 3 attackers, you have Uriel Antuna, Julian Quiñones, and Santiago Jimenez at the front.
Wow, so you have Quiñones over Alexis Vega. I've seen a lot
Yes.
of reading a lot of pundits having Vega over Quiñones. Is there a specific reason you have Quiñones there?
So I think Jimmy Lozano wants to. I feel this is how I feel, right? Jimmy Lozano likes to go from a 4-3-3 formation to sometimes a line of 5, or just have 2 2 nines at the front, right? Julian Quiñones offers that ability of becoming a second striker in the box if needed. Whereas Alexis Vega, while I think Alexis Vega is a better 9 than a wing, I think Julian Quiñones offers something that Alexis Vega doesn't have, which is a lot of physicality and then similar speed or pace as Alexis Vega offers. So I think he will stick with Julian Quiñones, just because Julian Quiñones is the most recent champ in Mexico, and just for the 2 things that I just briefly mentioned. But I wouldn't be surprised if Alexis Vega starts over Julian Quiñones, even as much as I would like, I dislike that. It's as you've been mentioning, I also seen it online and different pundits saying that Alexis Vega will start this match.
You can't deny that Alexis Vega had a resurgence this season
Yeah,
compared to the previous season. So he, as much as we know his antics and how we haven't seen him do as well as he can for La Selección. He definitely played well this season.
Hmm.
Another one that interesting point here, you had Aurelien over Chiquito Sanchez. Chiquito Sanchez obviously making news Tuesday this week of Sevilla, kind of showing interest in purchasing him
Hmm.
if he doesn't end up going to a big team in Mexico
In
first.
Mexico.
But yeah, so that's interesting. This is kind of surprising seeing Orbelin
So
over Chiquito.
yeah, the only reason why I have Chiquito Sanchez starting in the bench is because of the recent match that he had this last weekend with Pachuca, playing the final of the
Makes
CONCACAF
sense.
Champions
Makes
Cup,
sense.
right?
Yeah.
So I think Jimmy's gonna play it safe and make sure that Chiquito Sanchez gets to the tournament in the best shape possible. Orbelin Pineda has been training with eltri for a little longer, a couple of days more than Chiquito Sanchez, and so I wouldn't be surprised if he plays Orbelin Pineda there. Um, with the caveat that I think everyone understands that Chiquito Sanchez will be the starting midfielder alongside of luissuarez and edsonalvarez. But that's the only reason why I see Orbelin Pineda starting on this match specifically.
Okay, and I guess the last big point of reference here that you have written down on the agenda was Chiquete Orozco over Cesar Montes as a
Yeah,
possibility
man.
in defense.
This is a very interesting one because there wasn't a lot of information out there for me to grab, but there's some serious pundits out there who were claiming that Chiquete Orozco would start this match. And the whole reason behind it is, of course, we know that Chiquete Orozco right now is one of the best prospects that Mexico has in terms of under 23 players. And it is also true that he's been having some more than decent seasons with Chivas, albeit he plays for Chivas, right? But it's also true that Cesar Montes did not have the best tournament or the best season with Almeria this last year, to the point that they got relegated, and he was unable to actually set himself up as the go-to first choice for Almeria's first team. So there's a lot of pundits saying that they want to try and see how a combination of Chiquete, Orozco, and Johan Vasquez plays out. I think this is, if Jimmy's going to take some risks, or some calculated risk, this will be a good match to do so because this match means nothing. And I would agree that Cesar Montes over the last 2 years, perhaps, after the World Cup, he has been pretty much lackluster for Mexico over the last, I would say, the most recent international matches, not friendlies, but Nations League. We cannot forget that Nations League where they lost terribly against the USMNT 3-0 or 3-1, in that Nations League semifinal, and he was just a S show, should I say? Um, but yeah, this it's just interesting to see how we might see Chiquete Orozco starting over Cesar Montes. That's, to me, that's big news because you and I have been discussing this for the past, that for a long time, that Cesar Montes and Johan Vasquez are the quintessential center backs for Mexico,
Right.
not only now but for the near future as well.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting points. And kind of looking back at the roster of the preliminary roster that Jimmylozano called up, do you think we'll see any of his young guns that he called up that made such headlines? Marcelo Flores, Diego Lainez, Cesar Huerta, Roberto Alvarado, Fernando Beltran. Any of these guys play this match?
So, for example, unfortunately, Diego Lainez won't see any time because he actually got called. He got dropped because of an injury, and he got surgery recently, so he will not see any
Yeah.
time. That sucks because he had a good season with Tigres.
Right.
Nonetheless, I'm not too sure, man. I am not sure. I I have the feeling that the names of Marcelo Flores and Jordan, what's the name of this guy? Jordan Carrillo will get dropped. Uh, in
Hmm.
I guess just giving them the chance to go and join the under 23 team that is going to play in France. Um, I don't think we're gonna see some young guns this time around. I think we're gonna see more of what we should be. Um, Looking at Mexico's first team for Copa America, I think this time around Jimmy will not, even though he says he's making this call up to say that he needs to see more players. I think he's gonna play it safe and just use this match as aspiring for his 26 chosen players for Copa America. I don't think we're gonna see any big differences. Although it will be nice to see Jordan Carrillo, Marcelo Flores, Montaño feature on this match because that's the whole reason why they're bringing them up, right? That the whole excuse of having this generational change was to see more players. So why not use a match like this that has very minimal impact to see if you can find a difference maker in the name of a young player.
Yeah, otherwise, why bring him? Why just bring Raul and Lozano if you
Yeah,
were not going to give him a chance?
exactly, precisely.
Before we give our predictions, man, I have a question for you. How does Jorge Sanchez, Montes, or Chiquete Orozco, whoever he decides to play there, Arteaga, Johan Vasquez, how do they deal with Araujo, Betancourt, Núñez? Obviously these center backs, these defenders for Mexico, aren't. I mean, we see what happens against the USMNT when they play in Nations League. This
Hmm.
is a whole other level than those USMNT players.
Yeah.
Um, I guess this kind of ties into your predictions, but I mean, how does this? How do these defenders? I guess that's the point of these friendlies, right? To kind of get
Yeah.
that experience.
It's going to be a very tough match for them, man, because as you mentioned, this is very interesting. The offensive side of the USMNT is similar to the one that we see in Uruguay, and I say this in the sense of both of them have very physical and fast-paced players at the front. In the names of Nunez, in the names of Araujo, both of them they're super quick and they are super physical, right? Um, and this is something that really has an impact on the Mexican defense because while Arteaga is not slow, is not I don't think he's as fast as any of these players. Um, Cesar Montes is known to have some physicality, but is he able to overpower someone like Darwin Nunez? I don't know. Johan Vasquez shines for his ability to be well positioned on the pitch, but he isn't necessarily too fast. So will he be able to adapt to the quick
Or
reactions that
tall.
these exactly? So I think it's going to be a very very tough match. I think out of the four, the line of four that we have for Mexico, Jorge Sanchez will be the one with the most I guess with the biggest challenge in my opinion, just because he doesn't play that often. And out of all of the four ones, he's going to be competing with someone who is way faster than him. I think Arteaga can, match up in pace, but Arteaga is not great as a, full blown defender. So it's an interesting challenge, and it's a good measure for them to see how well and quick can they adapt to a problem of this size.
Yeah, no, it's an exciting challenge. I think these are the type of matches we like to see Mexico participate in, and it's cool that we're getting to see a whole summer of these types of matches for La Selección. But no, yeah, I think Mexico doesn't get to play against these teams often, so it's going to be a cool, I think, learning experience for Jimmy, and hopefully one that he can use to overcome Ecuador and Venezuela in the group stage, because we think that's a very manageable group, but it is also a group that has the most teams on parejos, right? I mean, probably like level between each other. So Uruguay Mexico, man, a team or a match between number 14 on the FIFA ranking against number 15 on the FIFA ranking. Uruguay 15, Mexico 14, for whatever that's worth. Prediction time. What do you got for score?
I mean, I think this is going to be a 3-1 loss for Mexico. Um, I mean, if you look at the last matches for Mexico, they still haven't found a way to score more goals. We have yet to see how Santigimenez adapts to these teammates, and getting, pretty much being the focal point for Mexico's offensive drives. So I think it's still a team in transition. So I find it very difficult to believe that they're going to be able to, have an outstanding match and outshine Uruguay in every single aspect. And again, I have the feeling that even though this might not be Uruguay's full-blown A team, because I know some of these A team players are going to get dropped due to it's just precautions to not overwhelm them before Copa America. They are still very competitive in terms of, or I guess sizing up against the Mexican defense. So I don't bode or foresee a easy or positive future for Mexico in this match.
Yeah, just to keep it straight here, I agree. 3-1 sounds reasonable to me as well.
Mhm.
I maybe Mexico doesn't even score. I don't know. Who do you got scoring for Mexico on your 3-1?
I'm gonna say Jorge Lantuna just based on statistics.
Based off
That's
that
it.
PPG curse
Exactly.
that he always seems
Uh
to score when we think he's not.
huh.
But yeah, that's a good choice to put your money on. But no, I'll agree with you, man. 3-1 seems like a reasonable score. I think Mexico, it's not going to be a score that they have to look down on if they lose, or get depressed going into Copa America. It's one they got to take and learn from it, and I think they will learn a lot from it, especially about Southern South American opposition, and I think it's going to be a key for them to be able to get out the group come against Copa America here. So Mexico opens up against Jamaica in Houston on June 22nd. Uruguay opens up against Panama on June 23rd. And post match tomorrow, or I guess later tonight, we'll record the 6 things we learned. And stay here with PPG to watch what we learned from Mexico against this Uruguay team. Our takeaways from this match. Exciting match. It's going to be kickstart kind of the Copa America, pre warm-up matches, and then Copa America obviously later this month, so it's exciting, man. So stick it here at PPG. We're also going to be covering USA's friendly this weekend, so of course stick it here at PPG. Adrian, man, as we wrap up this episode, where can listeners find us, dude?
They can always find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast on. Last but not least, you can find us on Instagram, and you can also find us on TikTok. So we've been posting shorts of the videos. We've been more active on our social media, so feel free to give us a like and a follow on those platforms.
Yeah, be sure to let us know below if you're following our new social media platforms. How are you liking the new content? We're excited about what we're producing here moving forward with our new social media manager here, Marcelo. So
Yes.
make sure to keep it here for PPG for more Copa America content moving forward with USMNT and Mexico. Adrian, man, another good episode, and let's go and enjoy the game, man.
Always a pleasure, and welcome back.
Thanks, man. See ya.